I have an announcement that wasn't in the announcements, and that's that we need a poet. We have our Good Friday service coming up on Good Friday naturally, and one of the things we try to do is express through the arts, and we've always had a poet to write poetry on the topic of what does Good Friday mean to me. And so if you consider yourself a poet, come see me and volunteer. We'd love to have you. Today is every introvert's favorite day and every extrovert's nightmare. It is roundtable discussions. And we have a few ground rules. So I think most of you have been here before for this, but one is nope to monopolies, meaning you're going to have limited time around the table to talk and don't monopolize the conversation. So allow everyone that wants to have an opportunity to speak up. You can take a pass if you like, if any of the questions are too personal, too uncomfortable, or you just don't feel like talking today, just say, I'll take a pass, and everybody acknowledges that's okay. It's also a big note that this is not a time to get on the bandwagon of your favorite political topic or hot topic. It's not a time to talk about abortion rights or sexuality or any of the stuff that gets people fired up. It's a time to listen and encourage and get to know one another, which leads into the next big yep, which is listening. It's not a time to correct. It's not a time to fix. It's a time to understand. And it's a time to experience community. We decided early on at Daylight that we didn't want this to always be 3 songs in a sermon. We do have a lot of the 3 songs in a sermon stuff, but we decided we wanted to have roundtable discussions pretty early, so we do them about once every 2 months. And it's to encourage community, get to know the people at the table with you. And then yepish, meaning we're going to pass a mic. After each little discussion, you'll have an opportunity to share with the broader congregation what you've spoken about, what you've learned. And Siler will be passing that beautiful specimen of DNA back there. Siler will be holding the mic, so don't grab the mic. He'll hold it and try to keep your points succinct. We're on a short series on the topic of Lent, which is the 40 days prior to Easter. And so we've talked about how we all live in this spectrum between darkness and light, or between leanness and fatness, so to speak, sacrifice and celebration, and in some sense, death and life. And with Easter coming up, the Lent season tells us what Jesus saved us from when we talk about death and darkness and sickness and pain. But the Lent season is a season to acknowledge that those things exist, to feel for one another, to encourage one another, to care for one another. And so the topic today is Lent. An icebreaker. What food or drink would be a bit sad to give up for Lent, and what food or drink might be most difficult? So you have 4 minutes to talk about this around the table. Make sure and introduce yourself if you don't know the people at your table, and go. So who would like to share briefly? Was there anything at your table that surprised you? What were some of the answers out there? My answer is, and I actually gave this up for Lent, is Amish popcorn. I don't know if you guys know this, but you can get on Amazon and buy samples, like 2-pound sample packs of Amish popcorn, like Midnight Blue and Ladyfinger and Mushroom, and we eat them pretty regularly. And they're shaped like little mushrooms. It's not like narcotic mushrooms or anything. I mean, I really miss my mushrooms bad. But I'm finding out that saltiness right before bed just does something for me, and it's just not easy at all. But that's the mild inconvenience. The thing that I couldn't live without is my protein shakes, obviously. Sally, you got a mic? Who wants to share real quick? Nobody wants to share? Here we go. Ernesto. That was not the sound booth.
Can you hear me now? All right. Well, at our table, we were discussing cereal. And it actually wasn't my suggestion, it was Noah's. But I realized, you know what? When I open a box of cereal, that is a single serving. So, so that is one of the things that are my downfalls. So thank you for that.
Nice. One more.
Anything with sugar in it. I love sweets.
Is that your mild inconvenience or is that your unlivable?
That's my unlivable.
Very nice. All right, we'll jump into the next question. Lent is traditionally observed through fasting, almsgiving, and prayer. Which of these feels most difficult for you and why? Who would like to share? More to the point, who is willing to share? Nobody wants to confess that one of these is hard for them?
Fasting? Oh, gosh. I'm learning a lot about fasting, and it came up at our table that it's good to tell your body no, which is something that makes a lot of sense to me.
Thank you.
What I've learned in the past is that fasting isn't always giving up your favorite food or beverages. Sometimes fasting may be giving up something that you enjoy, whether it's watching sports or soap operas or your favorite TV show. And with me, I enjoy watching true crime shows. And for me to have to give up true crime shows as part of my fast would be so hard for me. I'd be like, okay, who did it this week or what happened this week? I mean, I would just be in suspense until after Lent.
So if God asked you to have less murder in your life, you'd rebel against that? I feel you. Anybody else?
We talk generally at our table about a longer fast and what a longer fast, let's say a week, for instance, what it does to our spirit. It cleanses our spirit and it enables us to hear the Lord better.
Thank you, Mike. This may be an awful confession from a pastor, but prayer is the hardest for me by far. Prayer is so hard for me at this point because, and I think it ties into one of the questions that we'll answer later today, but it's the fear that was driven into me for so long, for so many years by the church, that God was this Santa Claus watching me to make sure I was doing what was right and not what was wrong, and that I have to approach God from that perspective. And mentally now I utterly reject that, but the neurons in my brain are wired in such a way where prayer just still comes as a very, very big challenge for me. Almsgiving, fasting, that's like something you can put on the calendar and just do. But prayer, there's something existential about it that is deeply ingrained in me to be afraid of. And so I pray a lot, but I have to really monitor how I pray. Anybody else want to share real quick before we move on to the next one?
I don't fast anything because I don't want to. That's honest.
Thank you. I thought I was being transparent for a second there.
I didn't share this at my table, but one of the things that comes to mind for me is that in all things, including these, God, I believe, is a very understanding Father and meets us where we're at. Mm-hmm. And if we're making any strides, regardless of how trite it may seem, extended or not, there is grace for that. And there are several nuances in that relationship that I believe we can rely on, which is good.
Thank you. Next question. Talk about something you needed to let go from your life at some point, and you are glad that you did. What's something you needed to let go from your life at some point and you're glad you did? Who would like to share?
Hello? Okay. When I was about 10 or 12 years old, I found the stash of Playboy magazines in my dad's closet. Well, pornography became a real problem for me for many, many years. And fortunately, the Lord healed me of that. But even as a Christian, it was a problem for me. But he healed me, and I appreciate that.
Thank you for sharing, Mike.
Well, a few months ago, I weighed 182 pounds. So I gave away all my fat pants. Everything above a 36 was gone. Then I went into the hospital. I retained water. Now I'm about 220, but I rose to 233. I have like 2 pairs of pants I can wear right now. I'm bound and determined not to buy more till I get this weight off. But yeah, that was one thing that I got rid of and wish I hadn't. Thank you.
For me, we were talking here at the table about letting go of certainty. It was this kind of need to like feel like you had to be right about a certain thing, or you had to know the absolute truth on whatever topic it might be, but specifically with faith. And letting go of that and kind of embracing that not everything is black and white, that there are gray areas and that that's okay, was definitely something for me personally that I'm pretty glad to have kind of let go of that built up kind of idol of certainty I kind of had in my life.
Nice, thank you.
That goes along with some of the other things we talked about at the table. One of the things that we said, or I said personally, was when we moved, I personally moved with my husband and left our home state and moved 300 miles away. And God just did so much more in my life when I got out of that little safe comfort zone. So when we walk out of our comfort zone, there's so much more He can give us.
At our table, we talked about one of the hardest things to let go of are some of the versions of ourselves. The ones that hold us to certain standards or tell us that we don't meet certain standards, or the ones that we feel like need to add up to somebody else's expectations. So sometimes the hardest thing that we have to let go of are images, and most of the time, falsehoods that we have or feel or believe about ourselves.
Good, thank you.
I was thinking about how the one thing I needed to let go of in my life was the resentment and anger and maybe even, I hesitate to use the word, but it may the hatred, really, yeah, that I felt towards certain people and certain things in my life that was extremely harmful. But I had to get to the point where I had to let those things go, and letting them go actually freed me. So I'm definitely glad that I did.
I had to let go of trying to be accepted by people who don't like me and don't want me around. I spent my high school years and college years doing this, and I mean, I try to, get new clothes and be smart and try to be the thin, pretty girl and everything I can to gain acceptance from various people. But if these people don't want me around, they don't want me around. So I just learned to let them go and surround myself with people who do love me and care for me and are glad to have me around.
Thank you, Dorothea. I'm going to hold my cards close to my chest on this one and move on to the next one. What is something God might be trying to remove from your life and replace it with what? So a lot of times when, like for example, Karen, I'm going to use you as an example, if that's okay. She talked about bitterness or hatred towards people. God would probably want to replace that with love. Mike talked about pornography. There's a healthy sexuality that God would want to replace that with. And the sin of certainty was Andrew's answer. Well, what does faith look like when you change that paradigm? So probably we don't have time. We've only got 6 minutes to work on this, and that's already going to put us over time. So answer, this one feels a little bit more vulnerable than usual. So answer if you feel excited about answering. If you don't. Who would like to share real quickly? There's a bit of accountability in this question, so nobody really wants to share. For me, it's that fear that I talked about. And I've been going back and forth with God about why He would allow me to experience that kind of fear. Like I would never do that to my kids. And so that's a conversation I have with God. And I feel like God is telling me that He's saying things like, let's work that out. Let's work it out together. He's not going to just snap His fingers and make it right, but He's going to show me and walk with me and encourage me and help me. And there's a whole lot to unravel there, but that's the thing, is the fear thing, the fear of God thing. Anybody else?
Well, I'm a recovering alcoholic, so he had to replace it with something else. He had to replace people I hung around. He had to change places that I would frequent and things like that. And I could not have done this without him. And I'm just forever grateful.
Very nice. Okay.
I think if I'm being 100%, you are so close to my face. I think if I'm being 100% honest right now, like in this moment, I think God is removing my sense of security. And that sounds like it's a bad thing, but it is causing me to really reflect on some things. And my sense of security is being replaced with the process of healing. And so there's a few things that have happened lately that have made me question my security and am I okay? And this idea that I have to be perfect and I have to have it all handled and together, and forcing me to admit that no, I don't. And no, it's not okay. And then dealing with that so that it can be replaced by healing and a greater sense of a more firm security.
Thank you. Anybody else, very quickly? I just want to say I love you guys. I love this church. I love listening to your conversations from up here. I love the transparency, the honesty, and the what's the word I'm looking for? Like sincerity that we experience here. I just love you guys so much. I'm going to share a passage of scripture and then pray and give thanks for the food. This is something that's been on my mind a whole lot lately. It's John chapter 3, verses 30 through 35, where John says these incredible words. He says, "He must increase, but I must decrease. He who comes from above is above all. He who is of the earth belongs to the earth and speaks in an earthly way. He who comes from heaven is above all. He bears witness to what he has seen and heard, yet no one receives his testimony. Whoever receives his testimony sets his seal for us that God is true. For he whom God has sent utters the words of God, for he gives the Spirit without measure. The Father loves the Son and has given all things into his hand. He must increase, but I must decrease." Let's pray. God, thank you so much for a church culture that allows honesty and transparency, I pray that that would continue to grow here, that we would be honest and transparent with one another, that I want to say illuminated in light, that the deeds done in darkness would be brought into the light, is something the scriptures say. And I just pray that we would be faithful to walk in that. I thank you for the friendships that are here. I pray you would nurture them and grow them. I thank you for those who have spoken openly about stuff that they would like to see removed from their life, and I pray you would complete that process. You would walk with us and help us as we surrender, and as we decrease, you would increase in us.